There you go.
Hi everybody, welcome to the June 2014 Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group. Say hi everybody.
Hi.
So you know I'm actually talking to people and not just the wall. We're going to talk about clutter and aging today, and the topic that Ed wrote that I think is very clever is we're not getting any younger, clutter and aging. And this is a topic that I have to preface with usually we're talking about your own clutter and your own stuff, and now we're going to talk about other people in your life stuff, and we're going to talk about death and dying. So I just need to preface it with please don't take offense if I talk in very objective and practical terms about someone dying. It's just part of the process, and if you're having trouble with it, raise your hand and yell at me. I don't want to upset anybody or trigger anybody's issues, but I do want to talk about, in practical terms, about what it means to manage the stuff as people pass away. So that's what we're going to talk about today, part of it. So everybody knows what happens as you get older, right? You start to slow down. You don't have as much energy. You start to lose physical abilities, right? You can't lift as much. You know, your grip isn't as strong. You start to lose some mental acuity. Maybe you're losing your ability to focus a little bit. Maybe it's getting harder to stay on task for long periods of time. These are the kinds of things that start to slip as you get older. And those are exactly the kinds of things that you need in order to work with clutter. So it makes the project get harder and harder for you to deal with. And there's really sort of two sides to this coin. You as you're aging, and the people that are in front of you that are aging, and then leaving you with the collection to play with. So we'll address both sides of that conversation today, and you can ask questions about both sides of that conversation today. But this is basically the landscape of clutter as you get older. I've heard a whole lot of stories about the kids who are left behind with the stuff when the parents pass away, the uncle, whoever is gone, and they have to go and dig out the house. And it's usually the worst possible time to be making any kind of decisions at all, because you're in grief and you can't focus and you can't think and you're depressed and you can't move, and all of your ability to be all organized and in action sort of goes by the wayside as you process someone's death. And so it's a really hard time to have to deal with it. While I was preparing for this, I actually, through Facebook, had a little short 10-minute film go by. A filmmaker in Brooklyn created a little short film about dealing with emptying her mother's apartment after her mother passed away. And she put in pieces of the mother in advance and asking her mother things like, how am I supposed to live without my mother? And the mother saying things like, well, you just learn to do that. And then she also put in the pieces of her and her siblings in the apartment, going through the stuff with the boxes, with the labels. One of them said giveaway, and she had scratched it out and put her name on it. And she talked about things like, they only had 3 weeks to empty the apartment. It's Brooklyn, right? Real estate's important. I'm sure it was a rental, and so they had to get out. So one brother came from out of state, and he took a conch shell. That's all he took, one thing. And then she was really very attached to all the contents in the apartment, and she was having a really hard time. And she lists things like, I couldn't throw out my mother's partial, her teeth partial, or the glasses, or the toothbrush. Like those things were too attached to her. And is he going to get you a chair? Too attached to her, and had too much of her energy still in them for her, and she couldn't let them go.
Very personal.
They were very personal, and they felt really important 3 weeks out. It was too hard to throw that kind of stuff away, so that went back to her apartment. So they showed sort of the dismantling of the apartment, and they talked interspersed about the kinds of things that she was keeping and the kinds of things that were hanging her up, and how she couldn't believe that her brother only took the shell, and that was all he wanted. And then the end of the film, of the 10 minutes, is the moving truck showing up at her apartment. And here comes 25 boxes into her little apartment, and just clearly in the New York area, right? And then these 3 pieces of furniture that she wanted to keep. And they gave away a lot. You could tell that they gave away a whole lot. but she kept the stuff that she couldn't make the decisions about and basically crowded herself out of her apartment by the time the moving truck had left. And this is what happens with people. You can't make the decisions, so you either, under stress, you keep it all or you throw it all. And neither one of those works really well. If you keep it all, you're crowded out of your house. If you throw it all, then really important memories, assets, valuables, keepsakes go out the window because you're too stressed out to deal with it. And everybody has their own version of one or the other. Like you either your panic means you keep, or your panic means you throw. Get it out of my face, I can't deal with it. So I have clients that do both of those things, and neither one of them is really a good solution. And but you understand, it's the death of the spouse is the number one stressful thing, but I think death of the parent comes in pretty close, right? It's a really, really stressful thing. So one of the things that the daughter expressed regret about as she was talking in this film was her mother kept saying to her mother had a cancer, and so there was some period of time while she was treated and then slowly died. And the mom kept saying to her, please come and go through the stuff with me. A, she was not physically able, so she was having a hard time. And B, she wanted to explain stuff to the daughter. She wanted to say, here's the people in this photo, and that's why this tchotchke is important, and here's where I got this little thing from our vacation or whatever. And she wanted to tell those stories. And the daughter couldn't face the fact, she says in the film that she couldn't face the fact that if they were going through the stuff, that meant that mom was dying. And she wasn't ready to deal with that. So she kept putting it off. And she put it off until her mom passed away. So she didn't get the stories. And she regretted that she didn't go and help her mom go through the stuff. She wished that she could have gotten around that barrier for herself and gone and spent the time and listened to the tales and known what was important. And she picked up somewhere in the film a photograph, and she said, well, I think that this is Uncle John or something, but I'm not sure about these other, it's like she didn't know, and now it was gone. She didn't know who the people were. So she was really regretting that as a sweet thing that she could have shared with her mom that she didn't get to do.
Gayle?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you provide the link to that?
I went to go find it, and I couldn't find it. I will keep looking.
Oh, okay.
I saw it, I read it, I went by, I came back a few days later and percolated the conversation, what I was going to write today, and then I went looking, I couldn't find it, so I'll keep trying.
Like to see that.
Yeah, it was a very wonderful, independent, filmmaker, great 10 minutes. It was wonderful, and I'll do my best to find it.
That'd be great.
So let's talk about the various reasons why it's important to deal with your clutter now. Let's be, the mom in this juncture, and deal with the clutter while it's a chore and not an impossible task. Managing the clutter requires physical capacity. You have to be able to walk, you have to be able to lift boxes, you have to be able to bend, you have to climb on ladders. And I know this very well as I'm wearing my knee brace and I'm trying to get on ladders to put things away for people. I'm going up a step stool to get up to the top shelf, and it's really not good. It doesn't feel good. So you have to have the physical capacity to manage clutter. And if you are waiting until you've broken your ankle, or you've fallen down, or you're having hip surgery, or you have an illness, and you no longer have the physical capacity, it's too late. So you need to recognize that it's going to require your physical capacity to do it, which means that you have to do it earlier rather than later. The clock is ticking and your physical capacity is sliding by, right? So the longer you wait, the harder the chore is going to get for you. Once it becomes too hard for you to manage, then you have to surrender control to someone else, right? Then you have to call in help. So if you pay your help, like me, then I will be gentle with you and talk to you about your stuff and help you sort. And you might end up keeping more than if your daughter comes in or some other family member who sorting your stuff is a worse chore than sorting their own stuff, right? And so when you call in that related or friendly help to come and help you, it's going to be a much more painful process for both of you, right? I got a call recently from someone I hadn't met. The daughter was in California. The mother's moving. And she's a hoarder, basically. And she was hoping that an organizer could come in 2 weeks before and convince the mom to leave a whole bunch of stuff behind. She wanted me to be the clutter police. And we went and worked with the mom for a couple of days, and the mom was just so mad, and they were fighting so badly that she was just like, get out of the house, I can't deal with this. So we were not able to help at all. And we walked away from a situation that I know the mom and the daughter were throwing things at each other, they were fighting, it was very volatile and desperate. So I know that it was a horrible move, and it must have been miserable for them. And while most of us have slightly better relationships with our relatives than that, I know that there are some people, when families, you push each other's buttons, right? You make each other crazy, and you call the daughter or you call the son and say, you need to come help me. And they're like, Mom, don't want to come help you, don't want to do your stuff. Or fine, they come because they feel guilty, and then you guys get in a bunch of arguments because they don't care about your stuff. They want it gone, they want the chore over as fast as possible. So it leaves you in a position of, if once you run out of physical capacity, you're going to have help, and you're going to have to surrender some control. And if you try to maintain a lot of control, you'll probably be, in some arguments. It'll probably not go as smooth as you would hope or wish, right? So I'm just warning you. This is where we counsel about bringing in people that you feel comfortable working with instead of the obvious bringing my relative who then I'm going to fight with about this stuff. For some reason, dealing with parents, siblings, clutter really gets under people's skin and causes a lot of, Mom, why are you keeping that? You don't need that. It's mine, and you don't get to tell me what to do. So you have that conversation a lot. Everybody has it, and I sort of step in the middle and go, okay, you need to go to the other room. We're just going to talk over here amongst ourselves. Because that conversation is stress-born, and it's from, nobody wants to be doing this chore, and everybody's mad that they're having to do it, and maybe there's time pressure, and maybe there's whatever else is going on, and it brings out really bad behavior in everybody. And so if you want dealing with your clutter to be calm and peaceful and less stressful, and you need to be doing it while you have the capacity and the energy to be doing it yourself and having people help you, not doing it for you. See the distinction? A sudden medical event may take away your ability to function, right? Maybe you have a stroke. Maybe you get super sick and you're in the hospital for 3 months. I hear stories a lot where somebody gets sick and they go in the hospital and they come home and the house has been cleared out. Like the kids see it as an opportunity to clean Mom's house. And they come and plow through, right? You assume that isn't going to happen. You assume that your relatives aren't going to do that. But if they feel like you're living in an unsafe environment, if they feel like there's more here than you need or can manage, if they're worried about your walker or the hospital bed or whatever, they may come in and plow through some of your stuff without your permission or knowledge. And they may do it with your permission, or they may do it and tell you they're going to do it, but you're not going to be there, and you may come home to God knows what they took away when you were not available. The other side of that is, if you have a sudden medical event, you may lose your capacity completely to sit, stand, walk, lift. Yeah, you may lose mental acuity. You may not be able to focus anymore. You may be confused a lot. Sometimes the people that I'm working with are people that have reached that point in their life where the idea of sorting and putting things away is too confusing to them. So you get to that part in your life too, where that it's not all, you don't have all the skill sets you need to make it happen, and you have to hire people to do it. It's just one of the things that you might have to give up. So think about the idea that you're going to downsize as you age, right? We start in one room in our parents' house. We go to college and stay in a dorm room. We leave college and we go to an apartment that's probably 1 or 2 bedrooms, right? Or we get married and get our first little house. Somewhere along the way we get the house, right? The big, fancy, most expensive house. And then somewhere in your life, you turn the corner and you start to downsize. So you go back to ultimately that 1-bedroom apartment or that one room, right? So you may end up being in with your family. Maybe you move in with a relative. Come on in. They're right there or back there. Maybe you're going to go stay at a relative. You're going to move in with your kids. Well, they're going to give you a room, and that's going to be your room, and then the rest of the house is going to be common area, right? So if you have a house full of stuff, it's not going to fit in one room. Maybe you're going to go to independent living. I help people do that all the time. The big apartment in independent living is a 2-bedroom. So maybe you'll end up with a 2-bedroom apartment and a storage closet on the grounds. Like if it's like in a high-rise building, they give you a little parking space inside the building for your stuff. It's not super big, let me just tell you. So there's going to be some point in your life where you're going to have to downsize. Maybe that'll be triggered by medical events. Maybe that will be triggered by you making the choice that you're tired of cooking your own meals and you want the cafeteria. Either way, you're going to have to plan and dispose of 75% of your stuff, 80% of your stuff. If you go to one room, it might be 95% of your stuff. That's a big project, right? And it's going to be done in a hurry with relatives. So unless you are able to start to thin the herd well in advance, that'll be one of those projects where people that know and love you will come in and things will start flying out the door. And it'll be hard for you to manage everything and to know exactly. And so it's an environment where the potential for things going away that you don't want to go away is pretty high. And not taking more than you can fit in the apartment is also very high. So it's something that if you could start the project now, thin, keep making it smaller and smaller collection. By the time it's time to jump to a smaller apartment, by the time you've downsized, you'll have you'll be down to the final decisions. The stuff you can say, okay, these pieces of furniture will actually fit in the new apartment that I've picked. And the rest of these pieces of furniture, family members, you guys need to come and take them away or whatever we're going to do, distribute them, sell them, whatever the final disposition is. And there'll be less for everybody to pack and manage and then unpack on the other end, right? Because depending on what kind of shape you're in, you may or may not be able to pack or unpack. I got called in for a lady who was, she's in her 80s, and she moved out of a big house in Memorial into 2-bedroom independent living place. And really the idea of standing up, she's in great shape, but standing up for 6 hours and unpacking boxes was really taxing her. That's just beyond her capacity. So she unpacked some things and worked with other people, and I unpacked the kitchen. And it took me 6 hours. And I'm 30 years younger than her. So it was really more of a project than she could handle. And she was very happy to have it done at the end. But there's only so much you want to put your energy towards, and 6 hours unpacking kitchen boxes when you're 85, not high on the list, right? So you want what moves to the apartment to be as minimal as possible, and you want to be able to make those decisions slowly over time, right? You don't want to jam it all up in a ball at once. So now's the time to start thinning the herd, right? So then the next question is, I'm running out of steam. I don't have as much energy. My physical capacity is less. Can I still do the project? Yes, you can. It means that instead of working 6 hours a day or 3 hours a day, maybe you can only work 2 hours a day or an hour a day, right? Which means that you're going to have a much longer lead time to clear out the house. If you can only put in an hour a day because that's your energy level, that means you have to have a whole bunch of more days, right, to get it done. So the idea that you can sort of run up to the last week before a move, this is true when you're 30. You can't pack your house in a week. And I've had people take off a week. Yeah, I'll pack the house in a week. And then I get a call like 3 days in. Oh my God, it's not going to be done. You got to come help me, right? Mm-hmm. We always underestimate how much time it's going to take. And if you can only work a few hours a day, then you need to figure out that you're going to take 2 times as much as you think you're going to take.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a side note, I just cleaned out my small compact car after not touching it for a couple of years, and yeah, you got it. A ton of stuff, like about an hour's worth of work accumulated in that little space.
Yay! That's good for you. But you're right, it's like a compact car is a little space and it takes a long time if it's full, right? And all of your cabinets is the same thing. It's like, think of all the cabinets in the house as little compact cars full of stuff. You jam them full and you jam them and close the door on them and hope nobody tries to open it and make it explode, right? But when you go to unpack, you have to open it and it all has to come out, and there's way more in there than you can possibly remember or imagine was there, right? So it is a project that takes a long time to dismantle your life and your home. And whether you do it or you let others do it or someone has to do it after you're gone, it's going to be a huge amount of work. And so how much you want to participate in that and how much you're willing to surrender to other people is up to you. The lady who was in her 80s, she had control of it. She did not want me making any decisions. She didn't call me until all the packing was done. She called me to unpack on the other end. She knew where all the furniture was going to go. She had been drawing floor plans. She had planned it all out. So she had a really tight grip on the project. She was not letting go and not letting anybody tell her what to do. But in the end, when we went over there, it's like, okay, so all this stuff came for the kitchen, so Gayle, you just got to get all that in there somewhere. And so she left me to do that part. If you want to have that much control, she spent a year and a half in advance of this move, going through everything. So when I went over to the house before she moved out of it to meet her, we went and opened all the closets. They were all pristine. There was hardly anything in any of the cabinets. All the drawers were half, 3/4 empty. It was amazing. They had thrown away 75% of her life already, or taken it to Goodwill, or sold it, or given it away. She and her daughters had been working on it for a year and a half before she put the house on the market.
That was wild.
And it was a really, she put the time in to get it down so that she paid less for packing, and they could do it in a day, and we could unpack most of it in a couple of days, and it went really well. But for her to have full control required a year and a half of ruthlessly going through all of her stuff to make it disappear. And that's what's required. If you accept the premise that at some point you're going to leave your house and go to a smaller something, then preparing for that in advance, slowly over time, is a much better plan than having it all jammed up in your face at the last minute, right? Here's another reason to do this. Like the lady who said that she regretted that she did not go and listen to her mother's tales. You know things about your family, the photos. I went through some stuff in the garage in my mother's house, and we unearthed some artwork that she had done in college that I had never seen. It's like, oh, this is cool, Mom. Where'd this come from? Oh, I did that in college. What? It was a big surprise. If she hadn't been there and told me that, I would not have known that when it came time to clean out her garage. I would have thought, oh, here's some interesting art we need to sell. I wouldn't have known it was Mom's. So we all have stories in our head and memories associated with objects, right? And here's Grandma's table, and this came from the house, the farm of your, great-grand whatever. And here's the photos, and here's all the people in the photos. You have all that data in your head that you know that has not by osmosis gone to your children, right? They don't know that detail. But later, they're going to want to know it, right? So either you spend the time to tell the stories and to take some of those mementos and pass them on while you're living, or she wrote cards on somebody else. Who was telling me this? Oh, I went for an assessment appointment, and the lady's mother-in-law had died. And she had emptied the house of everything except the important collections, furniture and clothes and things that she thought were valuable. And she had written notes on everything. So when they went into the house, everything had a card on it, attached to it. It explained what it was, why it was important, who it came from. It had data on it. I don't know how many years she spent doing that. I mean, a whole house full of little notes on stuff, everything. It must have taken forever, right? In my mind, telling the story is a little easier. Let somebody else take notes on that. But that was her coping mechanism to pass her information to her kids because she was in Connecticut and they were in another state, and it was easier for her to do that. One of the things that she, in the film, talked about was the idea that she didn't want to have that conversation because she didn't want to face that her mom was dying. And I think we all, as children, suffer from that. We don't want to talk to you about your inevitable demise, right? That's too distressing and upsetting. So we don't want to have those conversations. And while the estate planner and the lawyer and the accountant will tell you to have those conversations because of financial and legal reasons, I'm going to tell you that because of the keepsakes and the family history and the family lore that you want to retain. And if you don't have that conversation before the stroke, before the cancer, before the chemo treatments, before something goes wrong, you will not have that opportunity. And having that conversation when nobody's sick and everybody's healthy and there's not some imminent problem happening will make it a much easier and more pleasant conversation. So I think it's worth it to consider that going through the clutter now will unearth your treasures, which you then can explain and pass while everything's okay. And while you can get the pleasure of handing it off and knowing that it went to Kathy and I'm happy about that, you know, you can get that benefit of knowing where it went and knowing who's the keeper of it now and who's heard the story. And it's not stressful for you to do while everybody is okay. Does that make sense? I think leaving it to your family to do, which is generally our default position. We sort of live our lives and don't worry about it. The triggering event happens and we get downsized or we pass away or we go into the hospital or whatever happens. And we leave a really big burden for our kids to deal with. And I think we don't want to face the chore, but neither do they. They have their own clutter to deal with, and the idea of then going to your house and dealing with yours is a really big burden. And it's a burden that is particularly heavy when you are grieving. So the combination of those two, I think, is really sad and hard. And it's something to consider if you do not feel motivated for yourself to deal with your stuff. Being motivated for your family members, it would be helpful. Maybe it's something that you can do for your kids or your grandkids if you can't make yourself do it for yourself. You see what I'm saying? I know that they will come and empty your house and people do it all day long and stuff gets thrown away and things go awry and houses get packed up and wholesale and taken home. People sometimes go and they pack up everything in the house and it all goes to their own home. And it's like they moved a second person in overnight and then their house is drowning, right? So you know that if it's a burden for you, it's going to be a supreme burden for them. So if you're sitting in a house that feels cluttered to you now, imagine someone having to come and pack it all up and take it to their home and add it into their stuff. And I think that's a really big thing to ask of someone that you love and who is sad and grieving about your loss. So use it as a motivation. When you don't feel like, oh, I don't want to spend 2 hours doing this. Oh. When you don't feel enthusiastic, be a mom or a dad and gird your loins and go do it for your kids. And if you can do it now and slowly in small pieces over time, you can get to the end and it'll be okay. You can get to the end and it won't have been terrible and it won't have been a complete destruction of your life. It will, if you can get rid of it slowly over time, it's much less painful than having to rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of all of it at once, right? When, you know, somebody calls and says, oh, you can't go home to your house, you need to have full-time care and we're going to move you in over here and we got to, you know, we can come this weekend to move you. And then there's going to be a big fire drill to get you out. So I just want you to consider you're giving yourself a gift in that you are retaining control over what comes and goes and you're retaining control over the speed at which you do it. and you're not overtaxing your own energy level to do it. And you can make that schedule and do that work in a way that works for you and that still allows you to make all the decisions. But if you wait, you're going to surrender all that stuff. And I don't want you to have to do that. So, sorry to be talking about dying, but it is part of being, you know, the middle-aged troll. You guys can't see that my microphone on the camera has a little hair hat on it that looks like a troll. So, and we named the middle-aged troll because it's black and white. So, it's important for us to know as middle-aged people, and I'm just going to generally say in the room, we're mostly middle-aged in here, that we're going to have to deal with this. We're going to have to deal with it for our parents, and people are going to have to come behind and deal with it for us. And so, give yourself the gift, and it'll be a good thing. Okay, who has questions? Who's in this situation? Yes, ma'am.
I have been through the situation. My mother moved in with me, like you said.
Oh, so mom moved in with you. Okay.
Mom moved in with me. Stayed 12 years. Died. I have all the stuff. Then the sisters come and get their big boxes and take them to their house. And I don't have any kids. So I'm kind of like, what do I do with this stuff? You know, because I don't want to leave this house full of
Yeah,
stuff.
right?
So,
So you're the last one standing. You don't have any kids. So then what do you do, right? Yeah, you make some decisions. So you have siblings. So were you to predecease your siblings, of course your siblings are going to want some of your stuff. But just like the brother, like the son that came and took one conch shell, no one's going to want your whole house.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Nobody's taking all your stuff home, right? So there's going to be 10%, 5%, 15% of the things in your house that are really important to you and really valuable to you.
Okay.
And they're important because of your life experience and your memory, right? No one else in the universe has your memories or life experience. So to them, all that stuff is going to look like stuff. You tell them the story, offer them the stuff, and your siblings may take some of it away. But that's going to peel off 10 or 15% of your belongings. If you make the effort to say, this is why this is important to me, this is valuable, this was mother's bracelet, this was grandma's table, you know, don't you guys want this stuff? And they may say yes, and they may say no. It may be that the value stops with you. And no one that you know wants it. And then it has to go on to the next person. And I try to think of it like this, you know, think of it like you're just releasing it back into the universe, right? Like somebody out there is going to receive it and love it, and just because you don't know who that person is, doesn't mean somebody isn't going to find it in a resale shop somewhere and lose their minds because it's so cool, right? You don't know where it's going to go. So part of it is just accepting that if I don't get to see that it goes to someone that I know and love, who knows the story and values the memory, I'm just going to have to trust that I can release it, and, you know, most of it will be picked up somewhere else. And then there's this, you know, that's 15 or 20% of the house, and then the other 80%, disposable, trash, resale, Goodwill. It's not super valuable. It's just the stuff that we surround ourselves with. It's the old silverware that doesn't matter. Thank you. It's the leftover plastic cups that nobody is, you know, it's like you shoved them to the back of the thing and you're not looking at them anymore. So there's a huge amount of, not everything in your house is sentimental, not everything is a keepsake. Ed is saying that you can call hccm@cfhou.com. Send an email to that address and he can see it if you want to ask a question online. But if you're watching the tape, too bad.
We had 4 people watching.
Yay! Hi, 4 people watching. Nice to see you. Yes, ma'am.
If you have some out-of-town relatives who want the stuff, who is responsible for getting it to them? Is it on your dime, or should they pay to give it to them?
I think that's a negotiated thing. If you have the money and you want it to go there that badly, you can pay for it. If they want it that badly and you don't have the money, they need to pay for it and get it gone. And here's one thing too, I hear this a lot. Mom, don't give that away, that's mine. Yeah, no, it's my house, brother man, sorry. You are not a storage unit, right? Your house is not the storage unit. So there's a certain amount of my son moved out and he lives in an apartment that's this big in New York City and he can't take these 47 things. Okay, but if he's living in New York, he's never going to be in a big house. So this stuff that you're saving for him, you need to let it go. Let him pick some and let it go. There's always going to be stuff that your kids say, Mom, you need to keep this. What they're really saying is, I know it's clutter and it has sentimental value, but I don't really have time to deal with this, so just store it. No. You need to force the issue. I'm not a storage unit. I don't want to keep it. Either you want it or you don't want it. When they come for Christmas, they come to visit, pull the box out, say, go through the box. What you don't want, get rid of it. And you know, it's always a surprise because they forget what's in the box because they stored it when they were teenagers, right? And then they open it and they're like, what is all this? It was stuff that was important to them when they were 17. Then now that they're 40 and have kids is of no importance at all, right? But they forgot about it. So those kinds of things are, you know, kids hijacking their moms and dads to be the free storage unit. So, shut that down. And, you know, you can ask nicely, but you can also say, okay, you're like, so it's Christmas and you're here, so go through the box, and what you don't want, I'm going to take to Goodwill. And then if you don't get around to it, I'm going to take it to Goodwill, basically. And, you know, as a mom, you can open it and go, yeah, he might want that if you think it's absolutely necessary, but
I
yes,
had, you know those big flip top containers you get at Home Depot, and they're big,
massive ones.
14 of them full of photo albums and pictures from
Ah.
my whole life, right?
Right.
So I sent an email to everybody in the family and said, these are going to the shredder. I've schlepped these around for 40 years and I'm not doing it anymore. And so if you want them, you have to come and get them. Nobody did. I schlepped them to my daughters. I moved in with my daughter last week. So my living space went from 2,500 square feet to 1,600 square feet. When that house flooded, now I'm in 600 square feet.
Okay.
So,
So 2,500 square feet, ultimately to 600 square feet.
yes. So I paid an organizer. She spent from last Saturday, we worked 14 to 16-hour days.
Oh my
Since
gosh.
Saturday. And she was merciless, heartless, thank God. Because I can't ever do this again, ever.
Right.
So my question is I have these things that belong to members of the family, like when my husband worked in Africa and China, albums full of pictures. Is there like a historical society that wants them?
Actually, what's the name of the place downtown?
Clayton, the Clayton Library.
Clayton, yes.
Yeah.
We used to meet there. Okay, so there is a library in Houston called the Clayton Genealogical Library that may want historical pictures. You can also, if you think that they're particularly like related to China or related to, if they're specific topics, no?
I am not scanning a thing. Everybody, I have
Yeah,
heard
that's
that.
like, yeah,
No.
whatever.
This
Yeah,
woman
that's a
is not
project.
scanning
No.
anything.
I hear you. So she has a whole bunch of photographs, some of which you've gotten rid of, some of which,
Thousands.
yeah, thousands have already gone by. There's a small set now that you think might be significant to someone. So I would go to somewhere on the planet, right? You might go, if you think it's like China related,
Yes, he was.
you might go to a
And-
university,
but
an
it's
embassy, you know, something like that, if you think that there's a potential that there's something important in there.
The thing
but-
is these are pictures of child laborers. They put children to work at a very small age in China.
Right.
And
So
then
there's
do
a
that
specific
for
topic.
people.
So
So it's-
if you
yeah.
think it's a specific topic, Google
University.
Google people that specialize in that area and you can ship them the packet.
You have the Houston Metropolitan Research Center, which
Yeah.
is the Julie Addison Building, Houston Public Library,
Yeah.
and they
I mean, there's so many
family
universities in the
things, but They
area.
also have, specific subjects that
Yeah.
they want things,
Yeah.
and they will scan them if they want them.
Exactly. I'm sorry to say that this is the bane of everyone's existence. The 37 photo albums from all the vacations that your parents took before digital anything, right? And before we had the internet, so everybody took a picture. They went to Paris and took a picture of the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, your dad's picture of the Eiffel Tower is not the best picture of the Eiffel Tower on the planet, right? So it doesn't have historical significance, there's no people in it you know, it doesn't really matter. So there is a whole sort of slew of it's sort of the dead media of our age, right? And we're all inheriting the dead media. So plucking out the people that you don't know, plucking out the scenery and landscapes that you don't care about, and you can shrink the population down. And my roommate actually did that. She inherited, her parents were first generation Greek, and they inherited she inherited pictures from both of their families, of course, big pile. And she went through those photos over and over again. I don't know that person, I don't know that place, I don't know that house, I don't know that dog. She got rid of everything that she didn't recognize or know, and culled it down to the people, pictures with people in them that she knew who they were. And that made a really small population. And it also, she found really precious pictures of her mom and dad, and there was grandparents and people that she remembered that she'd never seen, and so she got some cool pictures out of it. But she has a little crate-sized box that has photos in it, down from, like you said, 14 albums. Because think about it, we all collect digital images on the camera now. We can thousands of pictures on our camera. Well, so the media of the day was 15 albums, 15 tubs of albums, because everybody took millions of pictures and they saved them and scrapbooked them like crazy and filled up an entire bookshelf with all their, photos, right? So we're all going to be dealing with those photos. And just like the house, there's going to be 10% of the photos that are cool, and there's going to be 90% of the photos that are trash. And Melanie paid for an organizer to come and go through all the photos and be ruthless and heartless, which I love. That's hilarious. Great description. But it was necessary, right? You couldn't do it. She could do it. That was the solution. That's excellent.
She's been the boss of me for 6 days.
She's been the boss of me for 6 days. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that you do hourly, or do you look at assess a project, if you're going to help someone?
Well,
What services do you offer?
so I would do it hourly, but there's actually a person out there called the Photo Nanny. She's an organizer that specializes in photo organizing, and she will take a collection of photos and pull the gems out and make a scrapbook out of it.
Ooh.
Costs a lot of money. She's not cheap. But if you want a lovely permanent book that is, fancy and special of all of your really great photos, you can make that happen if you want to throw the money around. It's totally possible. I don't sit and make scrapbooks. That's not my thing. Not happening.
You make jewelry.
Just telling. I make jewelry. I'm not making scrapbooks. Yeah. Yeah. She has a whole office. She's got 6 staff. They have a whole, rooms of tubs with they take all your photos and take them to their office. And they scan them all and mess with them all, and they publish books on the back end. It's a whole system that they do, and it's quite astonishing. Yes, ma'am.
Or say you had a ton of photo albums, if you just maybe I don't know how easy it would be to scan pages and then get rid of it.
Well, the problem with scanning pages is that those album pages aren't going to go through the scanner.
Well, I know
They'll
that.
sit on the
I mean,
sure. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We'd have to keep
But think about the labor. So she's asking about, do you want to scan the photo albums? You could, or get a kid to do it. Yeah. So how would you wrangle a kid into sitting there with the scanner all day long? That's what I want to know. Moolah. So I'm guessing they get about 10%. Yeah. See, I'm guessing that they'll get 10% through the project and then they'll bail because it won't be fun, right?
There are services that'll do it for you. You can
Yeah, I mean, you
back
can
up
send
everything.
the photos away. He's right. You can send.
How important it is.
Yeah, and it's all about the money you want to spend, right? So either you're going to spend money for someone else to do all that labor, or you're going to do all that labor, but transferring photos, either scanning photos or some other way of capturing, digitizing those photos is really a labor-intensive project. So you have to decide where it is on your list of things to do, and in terms of decluttering the house. I think just like any other decluttering project, there's a short and fast version, right? You take them all out of the albums, you go through and select, this is a photo I want, this is a photo I don't want. And you thin the herd and put them in a box and put them away. Like that's the short, wrangling version of, then you're going to pass on a box of photos, one of those photo boxes that can hold, 1,000 photos or however many gazillion photos in a box, right? And then you'll pass that on to your relative. And then they'll throw the box away. But it's if you have some sense of there's photos in here that I want to keep, I want to be able to see again, and I don't want them to all be in albums and take up all that space. You can thin the herd and leave yourself with an unorganized box. They make photo keepers that are plastic. You can sort them by category. This is my mom. These are pictures of my mom. These are pictures of my dad. You can make big categories and be done. So and photos is one of those things you can do as little or as much as you would like to do it. Thank you. It's really up to you how much labor you want to put into it. Yes.
Do you have a list of places that you can donate to that maybe pick up? Can you make suggestions?
Pick up what kind of stuff? Are you just talking? You're not talking about photos anymore.
No, not photos.
Oh, okay.
Furniture, things that do have value that you really do want to donate to. Like I've been donating to Salvation Army, but there are other places that are good organizations that will pick up on your doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sources?
Yes. So she's asking about sources of places to donate in Houston.
It will pick up.
That'll pick up. They don't all pick up. There's some that do. You can Google and get a list. Salvation Army, like you said, does. Purple Heart does. Veterans does. Veterans, what's it called? Veterans.
Paralyzed veterans.
Thank you. Paralyzed Veterans, and there's another one too. There's a couple of veterans nonprofits. There's all sorts of ways to divest of that stuff. If you have something, but nobody wants all of it, right? Everybody is a specific thing. Like there's Houston Furniture Bank downtown. They pick up, but they want furniture that's in good shape because they're either going to give it to people that need it, or they're going to try to sell it to make money for their organization. So they don't want your dirty old couch. They don't want the couch that grandma died in, right? They want the stuff that's nice and in wonderful shape. So if you have things that are in good shape, Houston Furniture Bank will solve your problem. But and the thing is that in a household of items, no one can solve 100% of your problem. You're going to have to parse it out. And the trick is to parse it out in as big of pieces of pie as possible. Like you said, Salvation Army will take a whole slew of things and not others. You don't want to pick really narrow solutions so that you have to make 20 more things to do.
I also have a place that recycles mattresses and bed springs.
Yes, that's Houston Furniture Bank. It is them.
I think I've got another pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, she's saying that she found a place that recycles mattresses in Box Springs. Houston Furniture Bank takes them and destroys them, and they like shred them all, and they build something with the box springs, and they shred all the contents and sell it off to be something remade into something else. It's amazing.
You have to take them there.
No, I think they pick them up.
They do?
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
There's a charge.
They have a whole yeah, there is a fee, but what else are you gonna do with it, right? So might as well go. Yes, you guys are raising your hands politely. Thank you.
They won't take it if you have a cat or a dog.
They won't take the furniture if you have a cat or a dog. Okay, thank you.
Sofas and things like that.
Okay, the Houston Furniture Bank, you mean? Okay, yeah.
There's another place out there called Freecycle.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
advertise things that most people wouldn't think that you could, like, when my mom passed away, we had unopened packages of Depends.
Yeah, and then, yeah, okay, so she's talking about, you can give things away by going on to freecycle.org. There's specific Freecycle sites for cities, and Houston has one as well, and I don't remember the name of it, I'm sorry. Freecycle.org will get you there. And basically, you have to join. There's a pattern for how you list the item and how you say that somebody has agreed to pick it up, and then you report that it's picked up. So there's a process that you go through, a formula and a zip code listing and all that kind of stuff. It's not hard, but you can put anything out there and offer it to be picked up, and if somebody wants it, they contact you and say, I want the leftover Depends, right? And I want the medical equipment, I want your old craft supplies. So you can put anything on there and offer it. Now, that's also something that's labor intensive. It requires that you go make a listing for everything that you want to give away. And then you have to take inquiries from people about by email about who, and make arrangements to meet them somewhere, because you don't want just anybody showing up at your house. So it is something that you have to do either long-term over time, or spend a whole bunch of time at once making all the listings and making all the appointments. So there's it's a good way to get rid of stuff that you have large quantities of and you don't have a lot of options of places to drop it off. Okay, who else is over there? Yes.
I just on the Freecycle, it's like a Hoover vacuum. You barely put it on, and people come get everything.
They do.
And even
It's
I
true.
put it on my porch or my driveway, and it's just.
It's urban recycling at its finest because you can say I'll leave it on the porch and you will go to work and come home and it will have disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the Freecycle. In the past, I heard you have to pay to be on Freecycle.
No,
That's
no,
not
that is not correct.
Okay.
It's a complete non-monetary exchange board. So it's just a format and a formula to contact people. I have this to offer. Does anybody want it? Yes, I do. I will meet you here to take it away. That's all it's about. Somebody over here is raising their hand? No? Okay.
GarageSale.com does that too, and people that want to buy what you have, pay you through PayPal, and you just.
So
on
she's
your
talking
porch
about
with their name on it,
right?
And they come in.
GarageSale.com.
No, Virage with a V.
Virage, VARAGE.com. So there you go. Virtual garage, I'm guessing. Virtual garage sale is what that is short for. And, they pay you through PayPal and you leave it on the curb and they pick it up. But all of those are solutions that.
GarageSale.com.
GarageSale.com, thank you. All of those solutions are one item at a time, one listing at a time. So it's not what you want to do to empty your house. You will spend all your time at the computer. It's like scanning all the photos, right? It's not a bulk solution, but it is a good solution for things that you can't otherwise get rid of, or things you have large quantities of, or that are odd or unusual. Or if, like I said, if you have time, if you're doing it over a 2-year period, you can be listing stuff every week, and eventually you'll get through it all. But there is some labor involved in it, and so you just have to, don't think of that as the empty the house solution, because it'll take you a long time. Yes, ma'am?
You can also look on Freecycle because people will put out there when they want something. And that's how I got rid of a whole bunch of mason jars that I didn't realize I didn't need.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so people do go on there and say, I want one of these things on Freecycle, and if you have it, you can then dispose of it. You can hook up with somebody. These are all great solutions for one-on-one, one object between you and another person. But that's real fine sorting. That's not big bulk movement. Yes, Ann?
This is super quickie. We were just talking about, we've had stuff, when we have stuff to get rid of, we just put it on the curb before heavy trash day, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a vacuum cleaner where the wheel had broken. I sent the vacuum cleaner out, an hour later it was gone.
It was gone,
if you put
right.
it out the day, 1 or 2 days before the heavy trash pickup, there are trucks circling the neighborhood picking up stuff.
Well, and truthfully, I think that everybody in my neighborhood knows that I put stuff by the curb because I get stuff from clients that can't go to Goodwill. I know Goodwill will throw them away. And I put them at the end of my driveway and I walk off the driveway and it's gone.
Wow.
Because I think people have figured out that I'm going to keep doing it forever and they keep coming by the house. And so it's like once you start the, pattern, you will become a way station as people drive. They drive down. Like I see people driving down the street and they're slowing down looking to see what's on the curb, So I'm happy for them to take it away and it goes to somebody that I don't know what they want it for, but if it's going with someone instead of Goodwill's trash bin, then that's awesome. People are really proud of their stuff, and sometimes they say, yeah, you can give that to Goodwill, and I'm thinking, yeah, Goodwill ain't going to take that. Goodwill's going to throw that out. But I take it with, and I put it at the end of the curb, and off it goes to someone else that wants to hold it for a while. So urban recycling at its finest. There's some neighborhoods that you can't do that kind of stuff with. The neighbors are hostile and will give you a hard time. But mostly, you can go and put something at the end of the curb, and it won't hang around for a long time. Like the neighbors won't know. They won't be there 3 days later. And truthfully, if it's there, I let it sit overnight, and if it's still there the next morning, I pull it out. But I've only had to pull it back off the curb like twice in 3 years. So it hardly ever doesn't disappear immediately. So it's a way to start. If you're running out of steam, it's a way to start getting rid of stuff. You can't carry it, you can't haul it off, you don't know where it's supposed to go, put it at the end of the curb and let it go. Yes?
What's your feeling of, I can't handle the garage sale thing.
I don't like the garage sale thing
And I
either.
don't know about, if I'm living in a house, having a estate sale, what do? Do you put your stuff you want and go stay with someone else and have them estate sale your house?
So if it's specific, if you hire an estate sale company, they say to you that you have to remove everything that you want.
Okay.
So when you do the estate sale for your parents, for instance, they're going to say the family has to come and take everything that they want because everything left behind is for sale.
Okay.
They're not going to manage, oh, this stuff is not for sale over here.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I know if you don't wanna mess with the hassle of garage sale yourself, a couple of places they're having garage sales as fundraisers and for donations.
Okay.
Oh, there you go, yeah. If you don't want to, time's up. Okay, if you don't want to do a garage sale yourself, there's always community garage sales that are looking for donations to raise money for their cause. There's also Grand Slam garage sales in Houston and around the country now, I think, too. You can hire some, young boys to come and manage the sale and split the money with them. And basically, they come take it out of the house, they stand on the driveway, they wave the signs, you stay in your house to drink coffee, and at the end, they bring you a check, and they take the rest away. It's awesome. Now, you're not getting, you're getting 60% or 50% of the money. They did a whole lot of work, and they earned it. But, then you don't have to do nothing. And, garage sales are fun when you're 20. But they're not so fun when you're 50. I'm just saying.
Do you have their phone number?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we
No,
have.
it's a website.
Someone tossed a question out in the group for recommended places.
Oh, okay, hold on. He's telling me I gotta stop this now. Okay, thanks, you guys. Come back next month. See you soon, and we'll ask the question.